March 5th is coming, folks. And with that, Florida State football back on the field, getting ready for the 2022 season. We get you ready for the offense. And we bring in Logan Robinson, as we always do during the offseason, just prior to spring practice, to break down unit by unit. Let's get it, Logan. Appreciate you being here. Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day. You got to get on over there. If you go to Patreon, you can get on the Discord, Noel Game Day, and, of course, NoelGameDay.com. Logan, what's going on?
Chillin, getting ready for some spring. The weather is beautiful out right now, and getting ready to go to the gym after this and go enjoy and lay out in the sun. So, and that just means spring football is on the way. A big spring, definitely, for this offense that we'll talk about, and a lot of storylines to follow, a lot of transfers, and I just can't wait to get inside and get to these practices. I've been waiting and kind of been slow the last couple of months, as Florida State seasons the last couple of years have ended pretty early. So ready to get back into some football, some pads hitting, some yelling, some coaches being ticked off. There's nothing better. So looking forward to getting back to some football. Even though it's spring, I'll still take it.
Absolutely, absolutely. If I swung the camera, you would see nothing but white outside here. So not laying by the pool, not laying in the sun. We were feeling pretty good for about 3 consecutive days, pushing 60 degrees, but winter's back, and we're back down into the 20s for hopefully just a few weeks, but we'll see. All right. Well, we're talking Florida State, so nobody cares about that. Before we get to the players on the field, of course, it starts with the schemes, the X's and O's, the concepts, everything that goes into that. Kenny Dillingham off to Oregon. Alex Atkins officially the offensive coordinator, so that's his role. Don't want to diminish that or take away from that. But Mike Norvell's offense, really, just because that's his baby, that's his deal, that's his expertise. So your thoughts about the way the offense is going to look this year?
Yeah, I don't think too much will change. Kenny Dillingham was definitely hands-on, I think really hands-on in the quarterback room when we got to see him in practices, and you got to see the development of Jordan Travis. And I think that's going to be something I'll watch more. You got Tony Tokarz coming in. Mike Norvell has a lot of high expectations for him as a young coach, gave him an opportunity in Memphis. Comes down to Tallahassee and now is eventually getting promoted. And that seems to be what Norvell does best with his coaching tree and getting his assistants paid. And so Tony Tokarz is going to come in and replace Kenny Dillingham. And I think, too, Kenny had a lot of say-so in that play call, in the play calling, that playbook in general. But, this was still Mike Norvell's offense last year, and that'll be the same here. This is a role where Coach Atkins can come in, learn, under a bright-minded young head coach with Mike Norvell, who knows how to run an offense, knows how to score, knows how to obviously make progressions year by year, knows how to run a good system with the running backs, because as an offensive line coach too, something that Mike Norvell does a really good job at is getting his running backs into the league and getting them to play better. They're good at pass attack, and so Atkins and Norvell, I really like this kind of combination here, that they can get this offense clicking, I think. And, this is something that Atkins wants to just sit back behind and I think learn from Norvell. There was some talk, Georgia lost their offensive line coach, and, could this be Atkins' time to move up there? But, I don't see him. He wouldn't regress and go back and leave a co-offensive coordinator gig to go to Georgia. I know that's an attractive name right now, obviously, after winning a national championship, but he wants to learn under Norvell. So I don't see a lot of this changing. This is still Norvell's reins, but it'll be interesting to see how impactful Atkins is and how also this impacts the offensive line as a whole.
Let's start at quarterback. A lot of Florida State fans are excited about AJ Duffy, but there's no question this is Jordan Travis's team. He's earned that. I would have told you, and did many times during the show from week to week, 2 years ago, man, this guy's really got to develop as a passer, because I just don't see him as a starting quarterback for a first-rate team in the ACC. That's not what I see. But that was in 2020. I thought he improved remarkably. I think it's reflected in the stats when you complete 63% of your balls downfield, 15-6 TD to pick ratio. He just, across the board, impressed. And not that he's going to fool anybody for Peyton Manning or anything as a pocket passer, but I think the one takeaway is also that, as a quarterback, especially in today's football, you can get it done in a number of ways. You don't have to be Tom Brady, Peyton Manning standing in the pocket, and he produces yardage. And this better than I do. It seems like the team plays for him. They like him. They fight for him. and there's a certain chemistry when Jordan Travis is on the field.
Yeah, that offense clicks a lot better, Mark, because whenever we got to see McKenzie Milton get in there, things weren't going well. I don't think fully McKenzie was, ready to be back as being a full-time quarterback, and we saw that. We got to see that last spring in those scrimmages, and we talked about it a lot. But, Jordan Travis, when he's in there, that offense is clicking. The biggest thing to me is what he needs to learn and develop on is still his reads, the deep ball, and then number two is just staying healthy. If Jordan Travis can stay healthy, this team can get down the field and score. It was crazy what the difference was if you put in another quarterback other than Jordan Travis out there. I mean, the whole offense fell apart. And so, he brings that. The number one thing about him, which a lot of coaches last year, opposing coaches, said that, his threat with his legs is extremely scary because he runs. He's arguably Florida State's best rusher, if not the best rusher. He's a running back that can also throw too. And we got to see a mark of him developing and getting better as a true first-year starter. And now this is his second year going in as a true starter. I'm interested to see how he develops. I thought his pocket awareness looked better last year. This is where the biggest growth was this last spring. So this is a huge spring for him. Once again, he's got AJ Duffy behind him. There's Tate Rodemaker. That's probably the biggest storylines right there. Who's going to be QB2? There's a lot of talk about, blue chip quarterback Duffy coming from IMG, didn't get to play throughout the full season down there in Bradenton. And, there might be some question marks on that, but, I'm not expecting a whole ton from Duffy. I'd like to see some chemistry. I'd like to see some easy reads from him and just feel comfortable. And then Rodemaker, he was pushed into a lot of the QB2 rotation after Chuba Purdy decided to enter the transfer portal. And I thought he looked better. But when it comes down to game time, there's some things where it looks like, deer in headlights. I mean, he's kind of just all over the place and kind of a little quite inconsistent. So that's going to be the biggest thing. I still think Florida State, and we've talked about it a lot of times on the show, is that they'll look for another quarterback in the transfer portal, but maybe some more college experience. But right now, this is the Jordan Travis team. This is his team, and the team, there's a lot of respect. I mean, I just hear so many things left and right about Jordan Travis, and there are a lot of things that he's going through that he's still able to beat out there on the field. It's just if they can keep him healthy and he can work on his body this offseason, it'll be huge. But like I said, this last spring, this is where we saw Jordan Travis really develop into a leader and kind of take over the reins of this team. And I think McKenzie Milton came in and pushed him, and that's what Norvell wanted. And it worked out very well. And, I still want to see, I wish Florida State did have a kind of a little bit more of a competition for QB1 here, not in regards of taking it away from Jordan Travis, but I'd like to see him pushed more. I don't want him to feel comfortable. And so, Norvell is Norvell. Those practices aren't easy. So I don't think that they'll be quite sweet and nice to him and just let him sit back and just do his own thing. They're going to push him, and big spring ahead for this QB room.
We have a lot of non-Florida State fans check out these spring position previews. So keep in mind, AJ Duffy, he didn't come to sit on the bench. It's definitely not his team this year or a serious competition for him, but we're looking at a top 10 quarterback in the country coming out of high school, top 200 players. So a lot of talent there. It's going to be interesting if Florida State can handle some opponents, get a lead, see some time, some fourth quarter time for AJ Duffy, see what he's able to do and see, like you say, just get on the field, get a little comfortable making some easy throws, and then make a big push toward 2023. Jordan Travis, again, we'll see what kind of steps he takes. And you make a great point just about August camp being about, okay, we got to get the playbook down. We got to get ready for week one versus here in the spring, let's get better technique, pushing off that back foot, everything that's involved in the mechanics of throwing a football and seeing the defense and making decisions and all of that and how much better he can get.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. It's for Duffy. I think a lot of fans are expecting him to come in and compete for a starting job. I just don't see that right away. To give him time, let him learn the playbook and build the chemistry with his new teammates. He's a newcomer coming in, so don't expect too much from him this spring. But I just want to see some development in him learning and getting that playbook down. And since his arrival, there's been a lot of people impressed with him and coming in with good shape, immediately getting to work with some other wide receivers, running backs, tight ends. So we'll see. But definitely this room has a few storylines to follow when spring practice begins next week or in a week and a half.
We got Logan Robinson on the line. Noel Game Day. Get on over there, both on Patreon for the Discord and NoelGameDay.com. Logan breaking down the Florida State offense. Okay, at running back, I would have told you 2 years ago, man, the guy that I want to see more and more and more is Lawrence Toafili, because he was breaking off the big runs, making a splash. Trayshawn Ward, my goodness, he popped at 6.4 yards per carry this last season. So set us up at RB.
Yeah, no, this whole room right now loses Jashawn Corbin, who was arguably, your top rusher, if you're not counting Jordan Travis. But then out of nowhere, Trayshawn Ward comes out and becomes the Spring of King. He just launched his own merch line too, called Spring of King, King of Spring, because of last year and how impressive he was. I think I came on here multiple times, Mark, and talked about, this is the guy that won the spring overall. Former walk-on, comes in, very competitive drive, and him from a few things that people have told me, just really tunnel vision. Doesn't care about what other people are saying, just knows that he believes in himself, and he's going to compete and take every inch. If you're going to try to tackle him, he's just going to go and try to get extra yardage, which is pretty impressive for a little bit of a smaller back per se. And, this room has DJ Williams too coming back. You got Lawrence Toafili, like you had mentioned, Mark, who was having, after, dealing with a few injuries last year, was starting to make some highlight tapes, definitely in that Clemson game. And his balance on his feet is really impressive. He's probably your best go-to if you're looking at a catch guy who can grab it from Jordan Travis, your best pass catcher in the backfield. He has that thread. You can line him out too. And then you bring in Trey Benson from Oregon, who's kind of a big question mark here. How healthy is he? Got to see a few of the vlogs from Micah Pittman, who also was from Oregon, and got to see Benson is definitely in shape. That's for sure. And there was some rumors that he's running like 4.3, 4.4 40s. I'm going to wait until we see that in person next Tuesday, if that's correct or not. But this room has little tiny question marks, but the talent is there with experience, and I'm really excited for Trayshawn Ward, who I think will take that RB1 spot headed into the spring game, just because of how well he looked last year. I thought that he was arguably the top running back last season. A lot of respect for Jashawn Corbin, because I thought he did well too. But Trayshawn Ward, I think, is a very gifted, might be the most talented running back in that room right now. You've got a few guys behind him. CJ Campbell, who's a walk-on, who we've heard a lot of good things about. Seems like Mike Norvell is able to bring in some talent, some lower graded talent, and bring them in as walk-ons, and seem to offer them scholarships because of the strides they're taking. And then you got Rodney Hill also, who I just heard earlier this week has been impressing too. So that's good to hear from a true freshman who kind of has a Toafili effect, in my opinion, more of an athlete coming out of high school, that you can use him in every direction as a pass catcher. You can line him out. You can put him in sweeps. There's all different kinds of things you can do him. And Ja'Kai Douglas is more of a wide receiver / running back. I think he'll be more utilized at wide receiver just because of how explosive he was last year. But still, you could still throw Douglas back in the backfield. I think he's still arguably one of the fastest players on this team. And you've got Corey Wren too, who speedy, dealt with injuries. Really going to see if he can make some jumps and this depth chart this spring. So it's a big room. It's a big room, and a lot of gadget players more than anything. But this is definitely the King of Springs room heading into this first week of spring practice.
Logan's here to break down Florida State football. We're talking offense, going position by position, getting you set for March 5th. And Florida State's dive back onto the practice field to get ready for 2022. Breaking down the wide receiver room, I think this is fascinating because you got guys left over from last season that, got their feet wet, 15, 20, 25 catches, and that are somewhat established. But then we got this good influx of guys like Winston Wright caught 63 balls at West Virginia last year. Micah Pittman showed some flashes at Oregon. And, of course, Malik McClain, as a guy that's already at Florida State, was a guy that obviously a lot of people were high on after the spring game last year. So I'm just barely touching the wide receivers. So take it from there. Yeah,
no, the transfer room did some work for Mike Norvell and Ron Dugans and that staff, bringing in some competition. I don't think Norvell was too happy with what the production was last year. It's pretty obvious now. And you bring in 4 transfer wide receivers who have had experience already in the college system. Some young guys too, but you bring in a veteran like Micah Pittman, who has a lot of respect there and has been making some strides during tour of duty, Florida State's workouts. Johnny Wilson, who is definitely has a height advantage and has that height threat to definitely in the red zone, which I think Florida State will use him a lot in. Not only that, but in blocking too. We talked about him during the newcomer interviews, and he said that, one thing that he prides himself on is making those blocks for his running back to take it 70 yards down the field, making those blocks definitely in the red zone too, if they're taking a running back out to the side, and Wilson is ready to block whenever. And, Florida State, Mike Norvell, you will get a lot of playing time if you want to block. We saw Malik McLean, who we were hearing, had a tough start getting acclimated to the college experience and workouts and practices. And that's made a switch this last spring. I mean, we saw, things we need to watch out for is last spring. I mean, Malik McLean was taking the most reps on offense out of anybody, between him and Jordan Travis, maybe a few of the offensive linemen, he was taking the most reps. And that went to show Malik McLean switched things around, and he was fully bought in. And, Malik has a big time spring ahead of him because, he's going to most likely try to hold on to that starting spot like he had last season. He'll be going into his true second year as a Seminole. I have a lot of expectations for McLean, and I don't think I'm the only person that FSU coaching staff is feeling the same way. And there's so many guys, veterans that are behind. Like, you've still got Portier, you've got Jordan Young, you've got Keyshawn Helen, you got Ontario Wilson, you've got Darian Williamson. I mean, there's a lot of veteran guys, and someone's going to be transferring. Someone's going to be leaving. You can't have all these guys in this room, and I don't think a lot of these transfers decide to transfer and, be one and done there and be leaving again. I think there's going to be some guys, some veterans at Florida State that either they're going to be ready to compete and full send it, or they're going to, enter their name in the transfer portal. But this wide receiver room has a whole lot of different storylines around it. And I still think a guy like you have down here, Mark, Ontario Wilson, is someone not really to look over. I thought, had some strides last season. You lose Andrew Parchment, but there was a lot of inconsistencies there and a lot of maybe a letdown on maybe what the production he was supposed to be bringing coming from Kansas. And this room has a lot of things to follow here. I feel like, multiple handfuls of guys that are going to be competing for a starting spot. But this Winston Wright is someone that I'm keeping a close eye on and becoming a starter day one, just because of speed advantage, his experience, having those 63 receptions last season. I could see him taking over the spot from Keyshawn Helton there in the slot. So this room is going to be incredible to watch. It's going to be incredible.
For as much as the wide receiver room is up for grabs in a good way, I was going to say it's a mess, but in a good way, with just more options, more talent, all of that to sort out through the spring. And it's going to be interesting, like you say, to see who emerges. And then obviously with the various wide receiver positions, outside, XY, slot, get the depth chart on NoleGameDay.com. You get the complete spring depth chart that's been released right there. For as much as that's a mess in terms of good options, no mistake at tight end. Cam McDonald's the guy. Jordan Wilson had a nice season in regards to run blocking. He was counted on for that, caught 11 balls. He's gone. But Cam McDonald, I got to think, one comment I've got about Cam McDonald is that I understand in this offense, because of the run-heavy portion of it, both from the running backs and from Jordan Travis, nobody's going to have some crazy offensive numbers at wide receiver or tight end in regards to, it's just not that kind of offense. Nobody's catching 85 passes in this offense. But I got to think Cam McDonald's going to be a little bit more of a factor in the passing game because of just his top end talent, 24 catches last year, that should improve this year.
I hope so, because he's got all the talent there. And, like you said, Mike Norvell's offense is definitely a run heavy, and he wants to utilize his tight ends more. And, after you look at Cam McDonald and a few things that he was able to do last season, I don't think he was fully healthy near the latter half of it, but you got to see some impact that he made along with Jordan Wilson, who transferred from UCLA, 1-year guy and now gone. It really was, again, the second half where he was really playing a pivotal part in Florida State's offense, definitely down the field and blocking wise, and also pass catching. Florida State was starting to develop a 2-threat kind of tight end set there. And sadly, that's just a 1-year and done guy for Jordan Wilson. But, Cam McDonald, they're expecting a lot from him. Once again, one of the biggest veterans now on this team, definitely well respected on and off the field and what he does. And so, I think Florida State's offense is going to want to look at him a lot. But, now the question mark is, who do you have behind him? This is maybe the weakest group in Florida State's offense, because after that, you're looking at walk-on Preston Daniel, or you're looking at a young guy with Jackson West, who has a lot of potential there, and heard a lot of good things about him once arriving last season. Wyatt Rector, too, previous walk-on also. Marcus Douglas, who we really haven't seen much on, just more of a bigger built guy that would be in for inline blocking, and then there's a few guys behind him, but that's about all you got. Brian Courtney maybe, but he's more, I think, of an athlete more than anything. But, he's starting off the spring, which he told us, at the tight end position, which, he's more of a shifty, fast guy, definitely a pass catcher threat. This has a ton of question marks. It's by far the weakest link in this offensive side of the ball. And, I'm interested to see if there's going to be some position changes for some guys too, to come in and help this tight end room. We'll see. But Florida State, looking into the future with Randy Pittman, hopefully Florida State sticks there with getting that tight end who definitely is a pass catching threat. Florida State's got to do some recruiting on this tight end room, because it's definitely the weakest link heading into this 2022 spring.
We talk Florida State football every Wednesday at 6 Eastern on our Florida State channel. Logan, myself, Jason Parker, when we can get Big Game James Coleman in the room, him as well. So every Wednesday, it's a good time. You bring your comments, your questions, and we get after it Wednesday at 6 Eastern. All right. Your baby, your boys in the trenches. These guys are the guys that everybody forgets their names, but if they don't get it done, nothing gets done. Even with Jordan Travis running around making some plays with no blocking, that can only last for so long. So these guys have to make a way. The depth chart's been released. You guys have it posted on Old Game Day. How I know that you are a big believer, and it was obvious that the offensive line was better last year, but still not where it needs to be. So, where do you think the battles are? Who do you think's fully entrenched? You can take it from there.
Yeah, the biggest battle is going to start off in the center position with Caden Lyles coming in as a transfer and Maurice Smith. Those two guys are going to compete for that center job. I wouldn't be shocked to see Caden Lyles take that spot and maybe Maurice Smith move to that another position, or, he just backs up and learns from Lyles, who's a veteran. That's going to be the biggest thing I'll watch in this offensive line starting off the spring. I've heard a lot of good things about Lyles coming in as a leader, kind of like how Dylan Gibbons has, who obviously started right away against Notre Dame in that game. And so, bringing in some leadership here, but Caden Lyles, I think, is expected, at least for me, by the end of the spring, heading into that spring game. I wouldn't be shocked to see Caden Lyles be the starter at the end of it. There's a lot of different kind of situations here with Bless Harris. Could he be moved over to God knows? I mean, could really use him at right tackle. He's a guy that you could move inside a little bit, but he's a dude that you could use almost anywhere. I think he's more of a hybrid guy as a transfer coming in. But Darius Washington too. Do you want to keep him? You want to keep him at his position, a tackle, or do you want to move him around? I think you have a lot of position changes that you can do in this offensive line. I thought Washington made the biggest step in this rotation, and he really put a stamp on that. Yes, out of these 4 starters coming back next season, I think he's a one that has kind of locked down a spot, and I think they'll switch around quite a bit. As the FSC's SIDs, we're kind of constricted on what we can say and some things of players being moved around and such, and we were well, that's okay. And then you got to see why, because a lot of these guys are being moved around early parts of fall camp, spring camp. So it'll be interesting to see where some of these guys move. But like I said, I think Caden Lyles and Maurice Smith is the competition to watch at center. Dylan Gibbons, I think his place is locked down. Robert Scott also, he's getting projections in the damn 2023 NFL draft. So I thought too he made some developments to last year. Just the biggest thing with them was the health problems and injuries, and that constrained them a lot, I think, last season, to where, at some points Alex Atkins said after a practice that they were putting out players in games that had never even played that position, which, they've seen film on it, they've seen film, but they've had no past college experience in it, maybe played a little bit of in high school, but, you had a few guys even playing center last year that had not even played center at Florida State or in the college level. So depth here might be a problem. That might be the biggest question mark, but there's a lot of younger guys. Lloyd Willis, you've got Rod Orr, who I thought, looked pretty impressive during practices last year. Florida State and Coach Atkins are looking at some of these younger guys to develop. You got Daughtry Richardson coming in as a freshman, along with Kenyatta Charlton. Coach Atkins is bringing in a lot of this offensive line class, about half of it almost, not including some of the newcomers that will be here during the summer, like Quishon Sapp. You've got Armella, and then hopefully Ontavious Woody. Atkins is doing a fantastic job here. I think health was a big problem for them, though, last season. This is a group that needs to continue to develop and grow and learn under Coach Atkins. And, there's even some guys like Schrader, who we didn't get to see last season due to injury. Brian Estes. You still got Zane Herring there, too. So the depth problem is more directed towards college experience, playing in college games more than anything. But, if those guys are able to develop, then I don't really worry too much about the depth. But that's going to be one thing that might be worrisome out of this group. But there's a lot of positives. It's crazy to think that, this might be one of the strongest groups going into the spring. I mean, I think it's 1 and 2 right there heading into the spring, which is a great strides under Coach Atkins and what he's doing.
Logan Robinson, Knoll Game Day, doing some work for us here, breaking down the offense, Florida State, top to bottom, every position. So we appreciate it. We'll have Logan back to check out the defense and get it done on that side of the ball. Check out Logan and the rest of the staff there at KnollGameDay.com. And you got to get in on the Discord for the latest updates on recruiting, transfer portal, everything going on. And with spring practice starting on March 5th, it's going to be humming over there. So again, Knoll Game Day on Patreon for the Discord. Logan, we appreciate this. Look forward to this every season. You breaking down both sides of the ball. We'll do some defense and some special teams. We'll hit you up with that as well coming up here soon.
Perfect. Sounds great, Mark. Looking forward to it.